Saucony Endorphin Elite vs Pro 3 Part 1. Of my heart rate based tests. I have chosen not to talk about how my tests take place in this video. Don't think people find it that interesting. But if you want to know, I have posted some of my other tests. Watch them at the end of this little video. But before you get the result, I have to say this test has taken many days and many hours to perform like my other tests. And even if you have to take all tests with a grain of salt, mine included, has this test been carried out so many times that I would say that the result is as accurate as possible without having a professional laboratory. I have tested the shoes with different paces, as I usually do, but in this little video, I only have the result of 12 kilometers per hour. I simply haven't done the test enough times with the other paces to believe the result is reliable enough. Here is the result. If you want to know more about the shoes, there are plenty of shoe YouTubers who are much better at talking about them than I am. But as far as I know, I'm the only one doing tests that have been repeated several times. And I can't say it enough, the most important thing when doing tests is to repeat them and repeat them and repeat them. As you can see that there is not much difference between the shoes at this speed. It is important to mention it is my data, based on my weight and running style. If another person did the same test, the result might be different. Here at the end of the video I have posted some of my other tests, if you were interested. However, it is extremely important to say that you cannot compare the tests from time to time, as the heart rate data varies due to an incredible number of reasons. It is therefore very important to repeat the test between the shoes one after the other, the same day. If you have any questions, just write. Here are the results for my heart rate based running test. I focus in this video on pure data. If you would like to know more about the shoes, then there are some shoe YouTubers out there who are much better at talking about shoes than I am. I'm not that good at English. So that's why this annoying computer voice. I have been running for over 30 years. So I have some experience. And although my English is bad, you are always welcome to write to me. I will answer as best I can. People who know me are aware that I pay attention to the smallest details, and especially regarding my training. I'll try not to get too geeky. But there are some things you need to know. I will only focus on the two most important things in my opinion in this video. I am in the process of making a large video where I go into the smallest detail about my running tests. I leave no stone unturned. So I simply need some more answers about running power. Before I can finish the video, I have tried to contact the dealer of Stryd, Next Gen Running Power, where I live. But they have not been able to help me with my questions. So I've contacted Stryd.com and I'm looking forward to their response. So I can finish my video. My tests have absolutely not 100% correct. But I try to get as close as I can. Feel free to ask questions about them. Then I will answer as best I can. I use a techno gym treadmill, which simulates running outside. It has almost no shock absorption. So the conditions are always the same. Plus 2 heart rate monitors so I know the data fits. Regardless of which test you do, you have to repeat it several times, and I speak from pure experience. You need to make sure the data matches. Otherwise the test is completely useless in my world. Here is a small example of it. A few days ago I was out running on an outdoor track. Ran 1 kilometer between pace 3:06 and 3:30. Repeated it 10 times. I ran in a pair of Adidas Takumi Sen 8. The plan was to do some watt-based tests. Here you can see why I think Garmin's running power is not useful. The other important thing is when you do heart rate-based tests, you do them right after each other. Here you can also see an example of the pulse varying between days, but not very much between the shoes when they are made right after each other. As I have said many times, I pay attention to the smallest details, which has given me some challenges when I've seen other YouTubers doing tests. But from now on I just concentrate on my own test. My plan in the future is just upload the data from the tests. So those of you who want to know more about how I make them can always just watch the video where I go into details about my way of testing, which will hopefully soon be finished. That way I can spend my time doing what I think is fun and get more videos published. And you don't have to hear me repeating the same thing all the time. Now for the test. Here you can see how many times I have run to do this test. However, it is important to say that not all the data is usable. Because of the 2 heart rate monitors I used did not show the same. I could talk a lot about this topic, but think you are tired of listening to me. So here is the result. It is important to mention that the last test 18.5 kilometers per hour was only performed once, so you should probably take the data with a grain of salt. I have done a lot of tests, but never before have I experienced that the result has been so close. I understand if you think about whether the result will be the same for all shoes. Here is the result for one of my other tests. The test is not quite as big, but I still think it is reasonably reliable. The result of this little test shows: the faster you run, the more difference there is between the shoes. Please write to me if you have any questions. Thank you for watching my video. I've really had a guilty conscience, because a long time ago, I promised DZAEN2 to do this test between the Adidas Adizero Pro 3 versus the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. It's only part 1 of the test because I had really big problems today. I had ended up connecting to the wrong Wi-Fi. It's a long story, but short. I ran 10 kilometers where my data was completely wrong before I found out. When I finally had to do my tests, I then had problems with my heart rate data. My 2 Garmin heart rate monitors did not show the same during the test. So ended up running 30 kilometers to do this little test. As I have said many times, I pay attention to the smallest details. I leaves nothing to chance. I should also repeat this test over several days to get the most accurate results. But I have now done many of these tests, and I can see that the data fits very well. Before you get the result, I just want to mention that I brought a pair of Nike Pegasus 40 with me to have a non-carbon shoe to compare with. I always do my tests at different speeds to get the most correct results. But today I only managed to do the test at 11 kilometers per hour due to my challenges. Sorry DZAEN2. But had it repeated several times. So I know the data fits. Here is the result, which does not surprise me at all. I had a bit of a feeling before I started the test. At these low speeds, there is virtually no difference between running shoes. Based on heart rate data. Just look here at the Nike Pegasus 40 during the same test. This comparison test was only performed once, so you should take the data with a grain of salt. Personally, I would think from my experience that the data would be even closer to each other if the test had been carried out many times. Always repeat the test, it is the most important way to get the most reliable result. I can't say it enough times. As I have said before in my tests, most carbon shoes are not built for these speeds, they are built to be able to run fast. So I ended up doing a test between Nike Pegasus 40 versus Adidas Adizero Pro 3 at 15 kilometers per hour. The test was only performed once, so you know what it means. And I know that 15 kilometers per hour is not very fast, but after running 30 kilometers and just coming back from an injury, I didn't want to run another 4 kilometers at 17 kilometers per hour. But only when you increase the speed can you see a real difference between a carbon shoe versus an ordinary good shoe. And with an even higher speed, the difference will also be significantly greater. If you have any questions, you are always welcome to write to me. I will answer all questions as best I can. Adidas Adizero Pro 3 versus Saucony Endorphin Pro 3 Part 2. As I said in my previous video, I promised DZAEN2 a long time ago to do this test. In this test I focus on the difference between the shoes at 14 kilometers per hour. Plus 17 kilometers per hour. DZAEN2, I know you didn't ask for 17 kilometers per hour, but I was curious to see the difference and need to get back in shape after my injury. Before you get the result, it is probably important to mention. I am 41 years old, 177 centimeters tall and weighs 80 kilograms. Maybe the result would be different for someone who weighs less. At 14 kilometers per hour. My average heart rate is exactly the same after running 2 kilometers in each pair. There is no difference between the shoes with my running style, height and weight. But at 17 kilometers per hour I can feel a difference between the shoes. But the difference is not that significant purely in terms of data. As I have said before, it's not always the shoe that feels the fastest, which actually is the best, purely in terms of data. It feels easier to run in the Adidas Pro 3 at 17 kilometers per hour, quite a bit more than the data shows. If I have to make a quick summary of part 1 and 2, then I would say with 11 kilometers per hour I would choose Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. With 14 kilometers per hour, will it be completely random which one I would choose? On the other hand, with 17 kilometers per hour, I would choose Adidas Adizero Pro 3 anytime. I have repeated the test 2 times to make sure my data fits. So if I have to give my advice, here I am not thinking of you DZAEN2. I know you have great experience and knowledge of the shoes. It is more aimed at if there are others watching this video who do not have that experience. My advice is very simple. Choose the one of these shoes that fits your foot best. If you like both shoes, ask yourself that question. How fast can I run? And finally, something I think is incredibly important, especially if you don't have a lot of money. Choose the shoe that is most durable. And here I have not experienced anything so far that can beat Adidas Lightstrike Pro. As I said in one of my other videos, I have written to Stryd about some questions. My goal is to try to make the most reliable shoe tests on YouTube without having a professional laboratory. Totally fair if you laugh and wonder what he's talking about. But you do not know me. And when I set a goal, I am willing to do everything to make it happen. Here is just a sample of what I said in my video. If you want, you can watch the whole video. I am in the process of making a large video where I go into the smallest detail about my running tests. I leave no stone unturned. So I simply need some more answers about running power. Before I can finish the video, I have tried to contact the dealer of Stryd, Next Gen Running Power, where I live. But they have not been able to help me with my questions. So I've contacted Stryd.com and I'm looking forward to their response. So I can finish my video. I have now received the reply from Stryd. My question to them was as follows. I have tried Garmin Running Power. However, without success. Their data is simply not reliable. In my tests, I can't tell the difference between a pair of Nike Pegasus versus a pair of Nike Vaporfly at 15 kilometers per hour. The tests were carried out on a treadmill, so I know the speeds are exactly the same. My question to you is, with the new Stryd Next Gen, can I see a difference between a pair of Pegasus versus a pair of Vaporfly? At 15 kilometers per hour. One must assume that Vaporfly has a lower wattage because it is more efficient. At least I can see a difference on my heart rate-based test. This was their answer. We are unable to make an official claim that Stryd data can help you make a determination on which shoe is best for you. I have great respect for their honesty, but it strikes me that it is not more accurate. You may be thinking, how do I make sure that the speed I use for my tests is always the same? I do it like this. The speed my treadmill shows is sent directly into Zwift. I don't use my Garmin heart rate monitors for that. It is not reliable at all. For example, if you run in a pair of Primex and switching to a pair of Takumi Sen 8 and your cadence changes a little, will the speed also often change? At least that's my experience. Now you are probably thinking, is the treadmill he uses calibrated 100% correct and shows the correct speed? I can say that with certainty. It is not. But it always shows the same speed no matter what. Which is the most important thing for my tests. I wouldn't be able to achieve that with a Stryd or a Garmin heart rate belt. Even though I know Stryd is more reliable than Garmin. But just not enough for my tests. When it can't tell the difference between a pair of Pegasus versus a pair of Vaporfly. It is important to mention that Garmin and Stryd are certainly good tools to use for most people. Just not for my tests. I also just want to mention that the treadmill I use for my tests is very reliable and has a maximum speed of 25 kilometers per hour, which means that it does not slow down when it gets hot at the speeds I do my tests at. I have experienced that other treadmills can do that. If there is something I did not explain properly or you wonder about something, I answer all questions. I don't know everything. But I leave no stone unturned. And constantly trying to become wiser. I know my video is not very exciting to watch like other YouTubers. But the most important thing for me is to give you the most correct data.